Hey everyone, Norm from Tested here, once again at Prop Store for an upcoming auction. Brandon, there are a bunch of costumes you guys have for this upcoming auction, and you have a few of them lined up here. Something from my childhood, the Power Rangers movie.
Yes, yeah, loads of great costumes in this auction. December 1st and 2nd, the auction's taking place. But the Power Rangers costumes are very cool because A, they're from the movie, as you just said, the 1995 film, not the television show. The movie has far more interesting costumes. And B, I think this is the first time that costumes from the movie have ever been on auction. So we're happy to have this set, and we do actually have the full set of all 6 Rangers. We just have a few of them out here today, and a few more of the helmets, but we do have the full costumes for all 6 of them.
What's super interesting from the production standpoint is obviously for the TV show, they used a lot of the footage from Japan, spliced in with stuff they shot in America for the kids. But for the film, it was like a full-on American production. They got to make all the costumes and kind of redesign them, blow them up for the big screen. And so the aesthetics here, much more armored, which you could tell was influencing than the reboot also.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I'm sure they had more money for the film, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think they wanted to bring a more interesting look to the Rangers themselves. And I'm sure they're influenced by other things that are going on in film at the time. And it's like, hey, let's get a cool sort of muscle suit, superhero type suit. Let's get some detail in there. And so, these kind of start with the spandex base. They're actually really interesting construction. And obviously there's some deterioration from time. They show some of their age, as you would expect from an artifact like this. But they start with the base spandex suit, and then that's actually treated with like a latex. Like maybe they were dipped in latex, or there's some sort of coating on that to give it a little bit more of a glossy sheen. And then you've got these pieces of armor that have been installed that are, I think, casted out of a urethane. You've got various elements of vinyl in the cuffs where it's, they created rib stitched areas, and obviously the helmets are made of fiberglass and top the thing off. And the helmets, I think, a bit more stylized also than their television counterparts, right?
It's so cool. You think about, you ask a kid of the 90s to draw a Power Ranger, and you think of the diamonds and the silhouettes and obviously the color scheme. But like you said, there's so much layering in here in the cut and sew. Things like the ribbing there and all of that. It's to make it look like some type of futuristic superhero. The helmets themselves. Can you talk about the helmets and how they were made and used?
Yeah, the helmets are really neat. So let me see if I can just take this one off and show you. This is actually a one-off from a special shot in the film where the Yellow Ranger has lights. Most of the movie, the Yellow Ranger does not have lights on the helmet. There's one shot in the film where they're in a parking garage, I think, and all of a sudden they need to light up the scene, and for whatever reason, the Yellow Ranger then has lights on the helmet. So this one actually had practical lights, and the way all these Ranger helmets are made, they're seamed at the sides, and they open up. This one I think has been taped, so I can't open it right now, but there's little hinges in there, like little ball and clasp hinges where a ball would snap into a socket to lock it in place. And you can see the wiring for the electronics, and some of the padding in there. This one's just marked yellow. One of the really interesting things that we learned as we were researching these helmets, and I think you can see it on one of the DVD special features, is that they were considering having the Rangers wear their helmets without the eyepiece in and the mouthpiece in because they wanted to see the actors' faces. And they sort of talked about the fact that when you watch the show, you can sort of tell that maybe it's not the actors in the suits, maybe it's just the stunt performers.
Yeah.
Maybe we'd like to see the actors in the helmet. So they tried versions where the eye lens was removable and the mouthpiece was removable. But I think they said it just looked ridiculous. So,
you would still have that seam over the nose right there.
Exactly, yeah. So I don't think they wound up ever using any of that footage, but they did experiment with it. And you can tell with this one, the mouth is actually a separate piece in there that's cast in fiberglass. And that's been fixed in now. I think it's just hot glued in. But at one time, they were experimenting with the idea that, they would have these things installed with magnets, and you'd be able to take the mouthpiece out, and an actor, a principal actor would wear a Ranger helmet without the mouthpiece in. So that's the Yellow Ranger.
And whenever I take a look at this stuff, it has the look good on the outside, but I also always try to empathize with the performers, whether it's the stunt performer or the main actors, and how comfortable this thing is to wear. And looking inside the helmet, it's just glued in pieces of foam. I'm sure they added more foam, took things out to to make it feel snug, but they're pretty snug as helmets.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you wouldn't want to be claustrophobic in there. And, the suits themselves, I'm sure, were very, very hot with all these layers of urethane and such. But I think when they design these things, especially in this era, they tend to go for form over function, should we say? Not necessarily the most comfortable thing to wear, but it looks cool.
Yeah, totally. And you have the White Ranger, of course. So even though there's the helmets here, it's the full costumes for the whole set?
It is, yeah. On the Red Ranger, the helmet's a replica, unfortunately. So that's the only one that doesn't have its original helmet. The other 5 Rangers all have original helmets. Most of them are 100% complete costumes. Some of them are missing a couple of components here or there. It's all detailed in the descriptions. I could show you maybe another one of the helmets. Let's see if we can take a look at the blue helmet.
This is honestly just a big piece of my childhood. Like, I remember seeing this on the big screen, waiting in line, so excited to watch Power Rangers. And this is, over 25 years later now, where that helmet has ended up. And it says right there, Hero. So that's what we saw on screen. That's so cool.
So you see, it's basically just attached with a couple of pieces of elastic at the top of the head. They've built up all this yellow foam padding for actor comfort. You can see some of the padding on the sides is actually colored and dyed blue. So, maybe they thought that would be visible through a seam at some point. And then these little pole straps are basically designed for the actor to grab, pull down, and break the face away from the back of it. And the mesh screen that's in the mouth here, that's actually been installed later. Someone put that in because the original mouthpiece was missing. So that was put in just for display. That's not original to it. Mm-hmm. But the helmet itself is original. And yeah, in a way, very simple, but also a very effective way to get in and out of a helmet quickly, right?
And you saw that labeling in there. So as we've seen costumes, and as you guys have had costumes come in through the warehouse, modern labeling and inventory systems are very robust in terms of what actor, what scene. When you find something like this that's gone through collectors' hands, is there more research that's needed to find out the provenance of it and where and screen matching it and how it was used? And
sometimes, something like this is very hard to screen match because all the suits would be so similar to each other, and obviously you have reasonable deterioration and wear on them, so it makes it tough to screen match. But it is interesting, and we do note in the catalog the various markings. Some components are marked Hero, some are marked, I believe some of the helmets say specifically Hero Dark Working Set, and that was a reference to a dark visor, so there were probably multiple shades of visors, some dark, some light, maybe depending on whether they're filming at night or not, or whether it's an action scene or not. Some pieces are stunts, sometimes the gloves or the boots, or even the bodysuits themselves will be marked stunts. And again, all that's called out specifically in the description. So it is kind of a mixed match, but all original pieces from that 1995 film.
And it's all kind of archaeology that's done so that when you rewatch the film, you can have a better understanding of the production and recognize that stuff. Speaking of costumes, though, plenty of other costumes, of course, in all the 900 lots here. Any of your favorites? Anything you want to call out?
Well, there's actually one here that I love, the Alien 3 suit.
Oh, yeah. Let's look at that.
So that's from the 3rd film, which doesn't always get the most love, but I really like the movie, and I really like the costume as well. They went back to the translucent dome on the alien head, which I think is a really nice effect. And I just love the paintwork. It's somewhat faded now on the bodysuit. I think the foam latex kind of absorbed the airbrushed paints, but you can really still see it on the shoulder blades, which are fiberglass. Amazing paintwork on those Alien 3 suits. And that, I think, is the only Alien 3 costume that still exists anywhere. So that's a significant one. But we have lots of great costumes. Standing behind me is General Kale from Willow.
Yes.
On the 80s fantasy kick. We have some spacesuits. We have spacesuits from things like The Martian. We have some Stallone costumes from things like Creed. So there's some great costumes throughout the auction, absolutely.
Especially in the world of spacesuits, one of those things where it probably is at a fraction of what the studio was charged to make that, or what the actual fabricators that do when it comes on the market.
Oh, yeah, and those Martian spacesuits are beautiful.
So gorgeous.
Yeah. James Bond, a couple of very nice James Bond costumes with official Eon paperwork. Those are really nice lots. Yeah, take a look at the catalog. There's a great spread in there.
Awesome. And the catalog is online as well for people?
It is, yeah, propstore.com/auction. You can also get a printed copy if we still have them. I think we're running low, but there's still a few there. And yeah, take a look. Over 900 lots of great memorabilia.
Well, thanks for bringing some of those out here to share with me, Brandon. It's always great to see you, and good luck with the auction.
Yep, thanks, Norm. Thanks for coming out.